Lisa Martinez stepped off the transport ship and looked around in wonder. The Galactic Medical Academy stretched before her like a city made of crystal and light. Tall buildings reached toward the purple sky of Kepler 442b, their surfaces glowing with soft blue energy. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that she was here, she felt very small. She was the first human ever accepted into the Academy's exchange program. Back on Earth, everyone said she was lucky. The doctors at Johns Hopkins had called her brave. Her parents had cried when she left. But standing here now, with her single suitcase and her warm medical textbooks, Lisa wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. A floating platform glided toward her. On it stood a creature unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked like a giant octopus, but its skin was silver and covered in patterns that shifted like living tattoos. 6 arms moved gracefully as it approached, and its large eyes studied her with what seemed like curiosity. "Welcome, human Lisa Martinez," the creature said in perfect English. Its voice came from a small device attached to its neck. "I am Professor Zethmore, your orientation guide. Please step onto the platform." Lisa climbed onto the floating surface, gripping the rail as it began to move. The platform carried them through the Academy grounds, past buildings that hummed, with energy and gardens filled with plants that glowed like lanterns. Students walked the paths between buildings, but they were not like any students Lisa had ever seen. A group of crystalline beings sparkled in the sunlight, their bodies made of what looked like living diamond. They moved with musical sounds, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Near a fountain, gaseous creatures floated in the air, their bodies shifting between solid and cloud-like forms. Plant-like humanoids tended to glowing gardens, their green skin covered in patterns of light. "Your dormitory is in the central spire," Professor Zethmore explained as they rose higher into the air. "You will share quarters with 3 other students. They are eager to meet you." Lisa's stomach twisted with nervousness. She had studied alien biology for months, but reading about other species was different from actually meeting them. What if they didn't like her? What if human medicine seemed primitive to them? The platform stopped at a tall building that looked like it was made of flowing water frozen in time. Professor Zethmore led her through doors that opened without being touched. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light, and the floors felt warm under her feet. "This is your room," the professor said, gesturing to a door that slid open silently. "Your roommates are waiting in the common area. I will leave you to get acquainted." Lisa entered her room and set down her suitcase. The space was larger than her apartment back home, with a bed that adjusted to her height and a desk that seemed to know what she needed before she did. A window looked out over the academy grounds, where she could see students of different species moving between classes. She took a deep breath and walked to the common area. 3 alien students looked up as she entered, and the room fell silent. The first was a crystalline being about her height, with a body that looked like it was carved from blue diamond. Patterns of light moved through its form, and when it spoke, its voice was like music. "I am Zixtal of the Vorthen Crystalline Collective," it said, its body chiming softly. "We have heard much about human medicine. Your species is known for its direct approach to healing." The second student was harder to see clearly. It seemed to be made of mist and light, constantly shifting between solid and gaseous forms. When it spoke, its voice echoed strangely. "I am Quinder of the Nebula Confederation," it said. "We are curious about your your traditional healing methods." The third student looked more familiar, though still alien. She was tall and green, with skin that had the texture of bark and hair that moved like leaves in a breeze. Patterns of bioluminescent light pulsed along her arms and face. "I am Velinara of the Forest Worlds," she said. her voice warm but cautious. "We have studied your medical texts. They are interesting." Lisa could hear the doubt in their voices. They were trying to be polite, but she could tell they thought human medicine was backward. She forced herself to smile. "I'm Lisa Martinez. From Earth," she said. "I'm excited to learn from all of you." Zixtal's crystalline form chimed softly. "Perhaps you can show us some of your techniques we have heard humans use? Physical manipulation to heal?" The way it said, "physical manipulation," made it sound like something barbaric. Lisa nodded carefully. "We use surgery, medication, and physical therapy," she said. "Sometimes we have to touch patients to help them heal." Quinder's misty form shimmered with what might have been amusement. How primitive. "We can heal at the molecular level without ever touching the patient. Physical contact is unnecessary when you can manipulate matter directly." Velinara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed brighter. "My people use light therapy to encourage cellular regeneration. We can heal wounds in minutes without causing additional trauma." Lisa felt her cheeks burn. She had known this would happen, but it still hurt to hear her training dismissed so casually. On Earth, she had been one of the top medical students. Here, she felt like a child playing with toys. "Human medicine has saved many lives," she said quietly. "We may not have your advanced technology, but we've learned to work with what we have." Zixtal's chiming became softer, almost apologetic. "Of course, we do not mean to dismiss your methods. It is simply that our techniques are more refined." The next few hours were spent in awkward conversation. Her roommates showed her around the dormitory, explaining the various facilities and technologies. Everything was designed for multiple species, with environmental controls that could adjust temperature, atmosphere, and gravity for different needs. Lisa learned that Zixtal's people healed through harmonic resonance, using sound frequencies to encourage natural healing. Quinder's gaseous species could actually enter a patient's body and repair damage at the cellular level. Velinara's plant-like people used bioluminescent light to speed up natural healing processes. Compared to these abilities, human medicine seemed crude and clumsy. Lisa had brought her medical textbooks, but they looked ancient compared to the holographic displays and energy-based treatments her roommates described. That evening, they attended their first class together. Professor Zeth Moore introduced Lisa to the other students, and she felt dozens of alien eyes studying her curiously. Some students seemed interested, others appeared skeptical, and a few looked almost amused. "Miss Martinez will be sharing human medical techniques with us," Professor Zeth Moore announced. "Her species has developed unique solutions to medical challenges using limited technology." Lisa wanted to disappear into the floor. The way the professor described it made human medicine sound like something from the Stone Age. She could see other students whispering among themselves, their various forms of communication, creating a symphony of sounds, lights, and energy patterns. After class, Lisa walked back to her dormitory, feeling discouraged. The other students had demonstrated healing techniques that seemed like magic. How could she compete with beings who could manipulate matter at the atomic level or heal with pure light? Her roommates tried to be encouraging, but Lisa could see the pity in their alien expressions. They felt sorry for her, the primitive human, who had to cut people open to fix them. That night, Lisa lay in her bed, looking out at the alien stars. She thought about her professors back on Earth, who had believed in her enough to recommend her for this program. She thought about all the patients she had helped during her residency, and all the lives human medicine had saved over the centuries. Maybe her methods were different, but they worked. Maybe there was something valuable in the human approach that these advanced beings had forgotten. She would prove that human medicine deserved respect, even if it seemed primitive to alien eyes. Lisa closed her eyes and began planning how she would show her classmates that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. She didn't know it yet, but she would soon have the chance to prove that human medicine could succeed, where even the most advanced alien technology failed. The next morning, Lisa woke to the sound of Zixtal's crystalline form chiming gently. The alien's body caught the purple sunlight streaming through the window, casting rainbow patterns across the walls. Lisa had barely slept, her mind racing, with doubts about her place in the academy. "Good morning, Lisa," Zixtal said, its musical voice somehow conveying kindness. "Are you ready for advanced healing techniques class?" Lisa nodded, though she felt anything but ready. She had studied the course materials, but they might as well have been written in an alien language. Terms like molecular reconstruction and harmonic cellular alignment made her head spin. The classroom was unlike anything on Earth. Instead of desks and chairs, there were floating platforms that adjusted to each student's needs. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing complex medical procedures that looked more like light shows than surgery. Professor Seathmoor's 6 arms moved gracefully as he explained the day's lesson. "Today we will practice basic tissue repair using harmonic resonance," he said. "Zixtal, please demonstrate." The crystalline being moved to the center of the room, where a practice dummy made of synthetic flesh lay on a table. The dummy had a large wound across its chest, designed to simulate a serious injury. Zixtal positioned itself near the dummy and began to glow. A beautiful sound filled the room, like a choir of crystal bells. The sound seemed to come from Zixtal's entire body, and Lisa could feel it resonating in her bones. The wound on the dummy began to close, the torn edges pulling together as if drawn by invisible threads. Within minutes, the injury was completely healed, leaving only smooth synthetic skin. The other students made sounds of approval in their various languages. Professor Seathmoor's tentacles waved appreciatively. "Excellent work, Zixtal," he said. The frequency was perfectly calibrated. "Now, Quinder, please show us molecular reconstruction." The gaseous being floated over to another practice dummy, this one with a broken arm. Quindera's misty form began to shimmer and change, becoming more solid as it focused. It extended what looked like a tendril of organized mist toward the dummy's arm. Lisa watched in amazement as the broken bone seemed to flow back together like liquid. The gaseous alien was actually manipulating the matter at the molecular level, rearranging atoms to repair the damage. The process was silent and smooth, and within moments, the arm was perfectly healed. "Remarkable precision," Professor Seathmoor commented. "Your molecular control continues to improve." It was Velinara. Turn next, the plant-like being approached a dummy with multiple burns across its surface. She placed her hands near the damaged area, and the bioluminescent patterns on her skin began to pulse with gentle green light. The light seemed to flow from her hands to the dummy, and wherever it touched, the burned tissue began to regenerate. New skin grew over the damaged areas, healthy and whole. The process was beautiful to watch, like watching a garden bloom in fast motion. "Cellular regeneration at its finest," the professor said. "Your species' mastery of bioluminescent healing is truly remarkable." Then all eyes turned to Lisa. Her stomach dropped as she realized it was her turn to demonstrate. She looked at the remaining practice dummy, which had a simple cut on its arm. After watching her classmates perform what seemed like miracles, she felt embarrassed about what she had to offer. "Miss Martinez," Professor Seathmoor said gently, "please show us human healing techniques." Lisa approached the dummy with her medical kit, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes watching her. She opened the kit and pulled out her supplies: antiseptic, sutures, and a needle. The tools looked primitive compared to the energy-based healing she had just witnessed. "First, I clean the wound," she said, dabbing antiseptic on the cut. "This prevents infection by killing harmful bacteria." She could hear whispers from the other students. Some sounded confused, others amused. Lisa tried to ignore them and focus on her work. "And I use sutures to close the wound," she continued, threading the needle. "This holds the edges together so the tissue can heal naturally." As she worked, Lisa could feel the disapproval in the room. Her method was slow and required her to actually touch the patient. She had to pierce the synthetic skin with her needle, causing additional trauma to close the original wound. To her alien classmates, it must have seemed barbaric. "The healing process takes several days," she finished, tying off the last suture. "The body repairs itself over time, and eventually the sutures can be removed." The room was silent for a moment. Then Quinder's misty form shimmered with what Lisa had learned. Was its version of laughter. "You cause more damage to heal the original damage?" it asked. "And it takes days instead of minutes? It is?" "Interesting," Zixtal said diplomatically, though its crystalline form had dimmed slightly. Double quotes very ... manual. Professor Zethmoor cleared his throat, or made the sound his species used for throat clearing. "Human medicine represents an important historical perspective," he said. "It shows us how healing can be accomplished with limited resources." Lisa felt her face burn with embarrassment. She was being treated like a museum exhibit, a curiosity from a less developed world. The professor was trying to be kind, but his words made her feel even worse. After class, Lisa walked slowly back to her dormitory. Her roommates tried to make conversation, but she could see the pity in their expressions. They felt sorry for her, the primitive human who had to cut people, open to fix them. "Your technique is very thorough," Velinara said. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what Lisa had learned was a sign of discomfort. "Perhaps you could learn some of our methods? The molecular reconstruction process is quite simple once you understand the principles." Quinder added, "I could teach you the basics." Lisa nodded and thanked them, but she felt like giving up. How could she compete with beings who could heal with sound, light, and pure energy? Her medical training suddenly seemed worthless. The next few days were even more discouraging. In every class, Lisa watched her classmates perform impossible feats of healing. They could regrow limbs, cure diseases with a touch, and repair damage that would be permanent for humans. Her contributions to class discussions were met with polite but condescending responses. During a lecture on emergency medicine, Professor Zethmoor discussed various crisis situations. "Cardiac arrest requires immediate intervention," he said. "Zixtal, how would your people handle a stopped heart?" "We would use harmonic resonance to restart the electrical impulses," Zixtal replied. "The proper frequency can stimulate cardiac muscle directly." "Excellent. Quinder, what about your species?" "We would enter the patient's body and manually restart the heart at the cellular level," the gaseous being answered. "Direct manipulation of cardiac tissue is the most effective method." "And Velinara?" "Bioluminescent stimulation can encourage the heart to resume normal rhythm," the plant-like alien said. "Light therapy is very effective for cardiac emergencies." Then the professor turned to Lisa. "Miss Martinez, how do humans handle cardiac arrest?" Lisa took a deep breath. "We use chest compressions and electric shocks," she said. "We push on the chest repeatedly to manually pump blood, and we use machines to shock the heart back into rhythm." The room fell silent. Some students made sounds of shock or disbelief. To them, Lisa's description probably sounded like torture. "You ... push on the chest?" Quinder asked, its misty form recoiling slightly. "That sounds very violent." "Sometimes we have to hit the chest hard enough to crack ribs," Lisa admitted. "But it keeps blood flowing to the brain until the heart can start again." The reaction was immediate. Students throughout the room made sounds of horror and disgust. Even Professor Zethmore's tentacles recoiled slightly. "That seems unnecessarily traumatic," he said carefully. "Perhaps human medicine will advance to less invasive techniques in time." Lisa wanted to explain that chest compressions worked, that they saved lives every day on Earth. But looking at the shocked faces around her, she realized how violent her methods must seem to beings who could heal with light and sound. That evening, Lisa sat in her room staring at her medical textbooks. The pages were filled with procedures that now seemed brutal and primitive. Surgery, injections, physical therapy, all of it required touching patients, causing pain, and accepting that healing took time. She thought about calling her parents, but the communication delay to Earth was several hours. Besides, what would she tell them? That she was learning amazing new healing techniques? That she was proving human medicine could compete with alien technology? Both would be lies. Zixtal appeared in her doorway, its crystalline form glowing softly. "Lisa, may I speak with you?" She nodded, and the alien entered her room. Its musical voice was gentler than usual. "I do not wish to discourage you," it said. "Your methods are different, but perhaps there is value in difference. Your healing techniques are thousands of years ahead of ours," Lisa replied. "What could human medicine possibly offer that you don't already have?" Zixtal's form chimed thoughtfully. "I do not know, but perhaps that is why you are here, to teach us something we have not considered." Lisa appreciated the kindness, but she wasn't sure she believed it. Every day she felt more out of place, more primitive, more useless. The other students were polite but distant, and she could see the confusion in their eyes when she described human medical. The emergency alarm shattered the quiet morning like breaking glass. Lisa jolted awake in her bed, heart pounding as the piercing sound echoed through the dormitory. Red lights flashed along the walls, and she could hear running footsteps in the hallway outside her room. "All medical students report to Emergency Bay 7 immediately," a voice announced over the communication system. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Lisa grabbed her medical kit and rushed to the common area, where her roommates were already gathering. Zixtal's crystalline form was pulsing with rapid, anxious chimes. Quinder's gaseous body had condensed into a more solid form, a sign of stress Lisa had learned to recognize. Velinara's bioluminescent patterns were flashing in quick, nervous pulses. "What's happening?" Lisa asked, pulling on her uniform. "Transport crash," Velinara said, her voice tight with concern. "Multiple casualties incoming. They're calling all students to assist." The 4 roommates rushed through the corridors, along with dozens of other students. The Academy's emergency response system was impressive. Walls became transparent to show the fastest routes, and floating platforms appeared to carry students quickly to their destinations. Emergency Bay 7 was chaos when they arrived. Professor Zethmore was directing traffic with all 6 arms, his tentacles pointing different student teams toward various treatment areas. Advanced medical equipment hummed and glowed throughout the massive space, and Lisa could see injured beings of different species being brought in on floating stretchers. "Martinez's team, Station 4, Professor Zethmore called out, spotting them in the crowd. "Critical patient incoming. This is your final examination. Real conditions, real patient." Lisa's stomach dropped. She had known the final exam would involve treating actual patients, but she had expected more preparation time. Now she was being thrown into a real emergency with lives at stake. Station 4 was equipped with the most advanced medical technology Lisa had ever seen. Energy field generators hummed quietly, ready to create healing fields around patients. Molecular reconstruction devices stood ready to repair tissue at the atomic level. The bioluminescent healing chambers glowed with soft, therapeutic light. "Remember your training," Zixtal said, its crystalline form chiming with determination. "We can handle this." A patient arrived on a floating stretcher, and Lisa's heart stopped. It was a human, a middle-aged man in a starship captain's uniform. His name tag read J. Sullivan, and his condition was obviously critical. His face was pale, his breathing shallow, and medical scanners showed multiple internal injuries. Commander Jake Sullivan, the emergency medic, reported quickly. Human. Male, age 42. Massive trauma from transport crash. Multiple organ damage, internal bleeding, and... The medic paused, checking his scanners. Cardiac arrest. His heart stopped during transport. Lisa stared at the unconscious man, her mind racing. This was exactly the kind of emergency she had trained for on Earth, but here she was surrounded by alien technology and alien methods. Her teammates immediately began setting up their equipment. Beginning harmonic resonance therapy, Zixtal announced, positioning itself near the patient. The crystalline being began to glow, and beautiful musical tones filled the air. The harmonic healing field enveloped Jake's body, designed to encourage natural healing and restart his heart. The monitors showed no change. Jake's heart remained still, his brain activity dropping as oxygen levels fell. Zixtal increased the frequency, its form blazing with brilliant light. The music became more complex, more urgent, but still nothing happened. The harmonic resonance is not penetrating human cardiac tissue effectively. Zixtal reported, its chimes becoming strained. His heart muscle is too dense for our standard frequencies. Beginning molecular reconstruction, Quinder said, its gaseous form flowing toward the patient. The alien extended misty tendrils toward Jake's chest, trying to manipulate the heart tissue at the cellular level. Lisa watched as the gaseous being attempted to manually restart the cardiac muscles. Minutes passed. The molecular reconstruction continued, but Jake's heart remained motionless. Quinder's form began to shimmer with frustration. The cellular structure is too complex, it reported. Human cardiac tissue requires different molecular approaches than we are trained for. I cannot achieve the proper reconstruction. Velinara stepped forward, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with determination. Initiating cellular regeneration therapy, she announced. Her hands glowed with soft green light as she positioned them over Jake's chest. The healing light flowed from her palms, designed to stimulate cellular repair and encourage the heart to resume beating. The light therapy continued for several minutes, but Jake's condition only worsened. His brain activity was dropping dangerously low, and his other organs were beginning to fail from lack of oxygen. The bioluminescent therapy is working too slowly, Velinara said, her voice tight with stress. Human cellular regeneration takes longer than our usual patients. We need faster results. Lisa watched her teammates work with growing anxiety. They were using the most advanced healing techniques in the galaxy, but nothing was working. Jake Sullivan was dying, and their sophisticated technology couldn't save him. Professor Zeth Moore arrived at their station, his tentacles writhing with concern. "Report," he demanded. "Patient is not responding to standard treatment protocols." Zixtal reported. "Human physiology is not compatible with our healing methods." The professor's large eyes studied the monitors, showing Jake's declining vital signs. "Try combining your techniques," he suggested. Harmonic resonance with molecular reconstruction and bioluminescent therapy simultaneously. The three alien students coordinated their efforts. Zixtal's crystalline form blazed with light and music, while Quinder's gaseous tendrils worked at the molecular level, and Velinara's healing light bathed the patient. The combination was impressive. Energy fields, molecular manipulation, and cellular regeneration all working together. But still, Jake's heart remained still. "It's not working," Quinder said, its misty form beginning to lose cohesion from stress. "We've tried everything." Lisa looked at the monitors showing Jake's failing vital signs. His heart had been stopped for over 10 minutes now. On Earth, that would be considered too long for successful resuscitation, but she had to try something. "Let me try," she said quietly. Her teammates looked at her with surprise. Professor Zethmore's tentacles stopped writhing. "Miss Martinez," he said carefully, "your methods are not appropriate for this level of emergency. Please allow your teammates to continue their treatment." "They've tried everything," Lisa said, moving closer to the patient. "Their methods aren't working. Let me try human techniques." "Human techniques?" Zixtal's form chimed with confusion. "Your primitive methods cannot succeed where our advanced healing has failed." Lisa ignored the comment and moved to Jake's bedside. She looked at the man's still form, remembering her training from Earth's emergency rooms. Sometimes the most advanced technology wasn't what a patient needed. Sometimes they needed something simple and direct. "Please step back," she said to her teammates. "I need room to work." They reluctantly moved away, though Lisa could see the doubt in their alien expressions. Professor Zethmore watched nervously, clearly uncomfortable with allowing a human to take over treatment. Lisa placed her hands on Jake's chest, feeling for the correct position. She had performed CPR countless times during her medical training, but never under these circumstances. Never with alien observers watching her every move. Never with technology that could heal with light and sound standing unused around her. "Beginning chest compressions," she announced, and began pushing down on Jake's chest with steady, rhythmic pressure. The reaction from her teammates was immediate. Zixtal's crystalline form flickered with distress. Quindera's gaseous body recoiled in apparent horror. Velinara's bioluminescent patterns flashed with alarm. "She's attacking the patient," Quinder exclaimed. "She's causing massive trauma to his chest cavity." "Stop!" Professor Zethmore shouted, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "You're damaging him further." Lisa continued the compressions, counting out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. She could feel Jake's ribs flexing under. Her hands could see the monitors showing the artificial circulation she was creating. But his heart still wasn't beating on its own. "This is barbaric," Zixtal chimed, its form dim with distress. "You're causing more injury than healing." "She's destroying his chest cavity," Velinara said, her patterns pulsing with anxiety. "The internal damage is severe." Lisa ignored their protests. She had been trained for this exact situation, and she knew what she was doing. After several minutes of compressions, she prepared for the next step. She had learned this technique in emergency medicine class, though she had never used it in a real situation. She raised her fist and delivered a sharp, calculated punch to Jake's chest, a precordial thump designed to provide mechanical stimulation, directly to the heart muscle. The alien observers gasped in collective horror. To them, it looked like Lisa was attacking an unconscious patient. Professor Zethmore started forward, clearly intending to stop her. "This is unacceptable," he shouted. "You cannot assault a patient in the name of medicine." But Lisa was focused entirely on Jake Sullivan. She watched the monitors, looking for any sign that The medical bay had gone completely silent, except for the steady beeping of monitoring equipment. Lisa could feel every alien eye in the room, watching her as she stood over Jake Sullivan's motionless body. Her teammates had backed away. There. Various forms of expression showing horror and disbelief at what they saw as a violent attack on a dying patient. Professor Zethmore's 6 arms were frozen in mid-motion, his large eyes fixed on Lisa with a mixture of fascination and terror. Around the medical bay, other students had stopped their work to stare at the human, who was apparently beating a patient instead of healing him. "Miss Martinez," Professor Zethmore said, his voice strained with effort to remain calm. "You must stop this immediately. You are causing irreversible damage to the patient's chest cavity. Lisa kept her hands positioned over Jake's heart, feeling for the rhythm she desperately needed to find. The monitors showed the artificial circulation she was creating with her compressions, but no natural heartbeat. She had been working for several minutes now, and time was running out. His brain activity is dropping critically, Velinara reported, her bioluminescent patterns dim with distress. The oxygen deprivation is causing permanent damage. The cellular destruction in his chest is extensive, Quinder added, its gaseous form barely maintaining cohesion. The trauma from the compressions is worse than the original injuries. Lisa ignored their warnings and continued her work. She had learned this technique from some of the best emergency doctors on Earth, and she knew it could work. The precordial thump was designed to provide mechanical stimulation directly to the heart muscle when electrical methods failed. One more time, she said to herself, raising her fist again. No! Zixtal's crystalline form blazed with distress. You cannot continue this assault. You are destroying him. Lisa brought her fist down in a controlled strike to Jake's chest, just over his heart. The impact was precise and calculated, designed to deliver exactly the right amount of force to stimulate cardiac muscle without causing additional serious damage. The sound echoed through the medical bay like a gunshot. Several alien students made sounds of horror and disgust. Professor Zethmoor's tentacles recoiled as if he had been struck instead of the patient. This is barbaric, he said, his voice barely controlled. I cannot allow you to continue this primitive assault on a dying patient. But Lisa was watching the monitors, looking for the one sign that would tell her whether her intervention was working. The screens showed chaos in Jake's chest cavity, damaged ribs, traumatized tissue, and what looked like catastrophic internal injury to her alien observers. Then she saw it, a small blip on the cardiac monitor. Just a tiny spike of electrical activity, barely visible among the noise of the damaged tissue. But it was there, and it was growing stronger. Wait, Lisa said, holding up her hand as Professor Zethmoor moved to stop her. Look at the monitor. The cardiac display showed another blip, stronger this time. Then another. The electrical activity was irregular and chaotic, but it was there. Jake's heart was trying to beat. The cardiac muscle is responding, Velinara said, her voice filled with amazement. There is electrical activity. Lisa resumed her chest compressions, but now she was assisting a heart that was trying to work instead of replacing one that had stopped entirely. The combination of her mechanical stimulation and the heart's own electrical impulses began to create a weak but steady rhythm. Impossible, Quinder whispered, its gaseous form beginning to solidify as it leaned in to study the monitors. Heart is responding to mechanical trauma? The rhythm grew stronger. Jake's heart was beating erratically, but it was beating. Blood was flowing through his system again, carrying oxygen to his brain and organs. The monitors showed his vital signs slowly beginning to improve. The brain activity is stabilizing, Zixtal reported, its crystalline form chiming with wonder. Oxygen levels are rising. Lisa continued her compressions, supporting Jake's heart as it worked to establish a normal rhythm. After several more minutes, she felt confident enough to stop and check his pulse manually. She pressed her fingers against his neck, feeling for the familiar throb of blood flow. There it was, weak and irregular, but definitely present. Jake Sullivan had a pulse. He's got a heartbeat, Lisa announced, her voice barely above a whisper. Medical Bay erupted in confused chatter as alien students tried to understand what they had just witnessed. Professor Zethmoor moved closer to the monitors, his tentacles dancing over the controls as he verified the readings. Cardiac rhythm established, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. Blood pressure rising. Brain activity returning to normal levels. He looked at Lisa with an expression she couldn't quite read. How is this possible? Lisa checked Jake's pulse again, feeling the steady throb under her fingers. His heartbeat was still weak, but it was getting stronger with each passing moment. His breathing had improved, and some color was returning to his pale face. Sometimes the heart just needs a mechanical stimulus to remember how to beat, Lisa explained, wiping sweat from her forehead. The electrical systems can fail, but the muscle itself might still be healthy. A sharp impact can restart the natural rhythm. Zixtel's crystalline form was pulsing with rapid, confused chimes. But the trauma you caused, the damage to his chest cavity, ... Broken ribs heal, Lisa said simply. A stopped heart doesn't. She began checking Jake's other injuries, using the alien medical scanners to assess the damage from the transport crash. The internal bleeding had slowed, and his other organs were responding to the restored blood flow. The compressions had indeed caused additional trauma, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. The patient needs surgery for internal injuries, Lisa reported, but his heart is stable now. He should survive. Professor Zithmore was studying the medical readouts with all 6 arms, his large eyes moving rapidly between different displays. The cardiac muscle shows signs of mechanical trauma, he said slowly. But the electrical rhythm is stronger than before the arrest. That's normal after a precordial thump, Lisa explained. The mechanical stimulation can actually improve heart function in some cases. Quindere's gaseous form had solidified almost completely as it stared at the monitors. Your primitive technique succeeded where our molecular reconstruction failed, it said, its voice filled with wonder. How can physical violence be more effective than precise cellular manipulation? Lisa looked at her alien teammate, trying to find words to explain something that seemed obvious to her. Sometimes you need to be direct, she said. Your techniques are amazing, but they're complex. They require the body's systems to respond in specific ways. If those systems aren't working properly, the healing can't happen. She gestured to Jake's, slowly improving vital signs. His heart had stopped completely. The electrical pathways weren't functioning. No amount of cellular manipulation could fix that if the basic rhythm wasn't there. Sometimes you need to shock the system back to basics. Valinara S. Bioluminescent patterns were pulsing slowly, thoughtfully. You mean that advanced techniques require functioning underlying systems? Exactly, Lisa said. Your healing methods work with the body's natural processes. But if those processes have failed completely, you need to restart them manually before a sophisticated healing can work. Professor Zethmore was beginning to understand. So human medicine focuses on maintaining basic life functions first? We call it the ABCs, Lisa explained. Airway, breathing, circulation. Make sure the patient can breathe, make sure their heart is beating, make sure blood is flowing. Everything else comes after that. She looked around at the advanced medical equipment surrounding them. All of this amazing technology is wonderful, but it doesn't matter if the patient's heart isn't beating to circulate the healing energy or carry the reconstructed molecules to where they need to go. Jake's eyes fluttered open at that moment, and he looked around in confusion. Where ... what happened? He asked weakly. Lisa smiled and checked his pulse again. You were in a transport crash, Commander Sullivan. You're in the medical academy on Kepler 442b. You're going to be fine. Jake tried to sit up, but Lisa gently pushed him back down. Take it easy. You've been through a lot. Your heart stopped for a while, but we got it started again. My heart. Stopped? Jake's eyes widened with fear. How long? About 15 minutes, Lisa said honestly. But your brain function looks normal. You should have a full recovery. Professor Zithmore approached the bedside, his tentacles moving nervously. Commander Sullivan, you were treated with human medical techniques. Miss Martinez saved your life using methods that seemed unusual to us. Jake looked at Lisa with gratitude. Thank you. he said simply. "I don't care how unusual it was. Thank you for saving my life." Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. After weeks of feeling useless and primitive, she had finally been able to help someone. More importantly, she had shown her alien classmates that human medicine had value. "The surgery team is ready for you," she told Jake. "They need to repair some internal damage from the crash. But your heart is stable now, so the operation should go smoothly." As the medical team prepared to move Jake to surgery, Professor Zethmoor pulled Lisa aside. His large eyes studied her with a new expression, respect. "Miss Martinez," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. We all do. We dismiss." 3 weeks had passed since the emergency that changed everything. Lisa walked through the academy corridors with her head held high, no longer feeling like the primitive human who didn't belong. Students of various species nodded respectfully as she passed, and some even stopped to ask questions about human medical techniques. The news of Commander Sullivan's rescue had spread throughout the academy and beyond. The story of how a human's valiant intervention had succeeded where the galaxy's most advanced healing technology failed had become legendary. Medical professionals from across the galaxy were requesting information about human emergency procedures. Lisa entered the Advanced Healing Techniques classroom to find it packed with students. Word had gotten out that she would be demonstrating human medical methods, and aliens from all over the academy had come to observe. Professor Zethmoor's tentacles waved nervously as he tried to manage the crowd. "Please find seats," he announced. "Today Miss Martinez will teach us about human emergency medicine. This knowledge may prove valuable in situations where our traditional methods are insufficient." Lisa set up her demonstration area with basic human medical equipment. Compared to the energy-based healing devices surrounding her, her tools looked simple and crude. But she no longer felt embarrassed by their simplicity. She had learned that simple could be effective. "Human medicine is based on a simple principle," she began, addressing the crowd of alien students. "Keep the patient alive first, heal them second. We call this approach life support, maintaining the basic functions that keep someone alive while their body heals itself." Zix Tao raised a crystalline appendage, but our healing methods can repair damage directly. Why would you simply maintain life instead of actively healing? Lisa smiled at her roommate. Their relationship had changed completely since the emergency. Where once there had been condescension, now there was genuine curiosity and respect. "Because sometimes the healing systems themselves are damaged," Lisa explained. "If the heart isn't beating, cellular regeneration can't work because there's no blood flow to carry the healing energy. If the lungs aren't working, molecular reconstruction fails because there's no oxygen for the repaired cells." She picked up a simple stethoscope, one of the most basic tools in human medicine. "This device lets us listen to the heart and lungs. It's thousands of years old by galactic standards, but it tells us immediately if the basic life functions are working." A student from the Crystalline Collective chimed a question. "How can such a primitive device be useful when we have quantum bioscanners?" Lisa placed the stethoscope on a practice dummy and invited the alien student to listen. "Quantum bioscanners give you detailed molecular information," she said. "But sometimes you just need to know, is the heart beating or not? Is air moving through the lungs or not? Simple questions require simple tools." The crystalline being listened through the stethoscope, its form flickering with surprise. "I can hear the cardiac rhythm clearly," it reported. "The information is immediate and direct." "Exactly," Lisa said. "No power source, no complex analysis, no waiting for results. Just direct information about the most important question. Is this patient alive or dead?" Professor Zethmoor moved closer to observe. "Show us the chest compression technique that saved Commander Sullivan," he requested. Lisa positioned herself over another practice dummy. Chest compressions manually pump blood through the body when the heart is stopped, she explained. We push down hard on the chest, compressing the heart between the breastbone and the spine. This forces blood out of the heart and into the body. She began demonstrating the technique, pressing down on the dummy's chest with steady rhythm. We compress at least 2 inches deep, at a rate of 100 to 120 compressions per minute. It's hard work. Most people get tired after just a few minutes. The alien students watched in fascination as Lisa performed what looked like an assault on the dummy. But now they understood the purpose behind the apparent violence. The compressions only provide about 30% of normal blood flow, Lisa continued, not stopping her rhythm. But 30% is enough to keep the brain alive until the heart can be restarted. Quindera's gaseous form solidified as it studied the demonstration. So you accept reduced efficiency in exchange for immediate action? Sometimes reduced efficiency is better than no efficiency at all, Lisa replied, still maintaining her compressions. If your molecular reconstruction requires a functioning circulatory system, and the circulatory system has failed, then perfect healing techniques become useless. But crude manual circulation can keep the patient alive until the system can be repaired. She stopped the compressions and checked the dummy's simulated pulse. Now I'll demonstrate the precordial thump, the technique that restarted Commander Sullivan's heart. The room fell silent as Lisa raised her fist above the dummy's chest. Even though they had seen this technique save a life, it still looked shocking to the alien observers. The precordial thump delivers a mechanical shock directly to the heart. Muscle, she explained. It's only used when the heart has completely stopped and other methods have failed. The impact can stimulate the electrical system and restart normal rhythm. She brought her fist down in a controlled strike to the dummy's chest. The sound echoed through the classroom, and several students made sounds of discomfort. This technique has about a 5% success rate, Lisa said honestly. But when someone is clinically dead, 5% is infinitely better than 0%. Valinara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with understanding. You use imperfect techniques because they are better than perfect techniques that cannot be applied. That's exactly right, Lisa said. Human medicine is often about choosing the best available option, not the best theoretical option. The questions came rapidly after that. Students wanted to know about other, primitive, human techniques. Lisa demonstrated splinting broken bones. With simple materials, treating wounds with basic antiseptics, and using manual pressure to control bleeding. Why do you not simply regenerate the damaged tissue? A plant-like student asked about wound care. Because regeneration takes time and energy, Lisa explained. If someone is bleeding to death, you stop the bleeding first with direct pressure. You can regenerate the tissue later, after the patient is stable. Professor Zethmoor was taking notes with all 6 arms. These techniques focus on immediate stabilization rather than complete healing, he observed. We have a saying, Lisa said, you can't heal a dead patient. So we keep them alive first, then worry about making them perfectly healthy. A student from the gaseous collective asked about surgery. Your species cuts into patients deliberately. How is this not harmful? Lisa had anticipated this question. Surgery is controlled damage to repair greater damage, she said. We cut through healthy tissue to reach diseased tissue. We accept small harm to prevent large harm. She showed them images of human surgical procedures on the holographic display. To the alien students, the images looked like torture. But Lisa explained each step, showing how temporary damage led to long-term healing. This is a heart bypass surgery, she said, showing an image of an open chest cavity. We stop the heart, cut it open, and reroute blood flow around blocked arteries. The patient is technically dead during the procedure, but we use machines to maintain circulation and breathing. The room was completely silent. The concept of deliberately stopping a heart to fix it was almost incomprehensible to beings who could heal with light and sound. The patient recovers completely, Lisa continued. The surgical wounds heal, the heart works better than before, and they can live for decades longer. We accept hours of trauma to provide years of healthy life. Remarkable. Professor Zeth Moore said, "Your species has developed ways to heal by causing temporary death. It's all about acceptable trade-offs," Lisa explained. Everything in medicine involves risks and benefits. We choose interventions where the benefits outweigh the risks, even if the risks seem frightening. As the demonstration continued, Lisa noticed a change in the room. The alien students were no longer looking at human medicine as primitive or barbaric. They were beginning to understand the philosophy behind it, the willingness to accept temporary harm to achieve long-term good. "There is wisdom in your direct approach," Zixtal chimed thoughtfully. "Our healing methods require optimal conditions. Your methods work even when conditions are terrible." "That's the point," Lisa said. "Human medicine was developed under harsh conditions with limited resources. We learned to make do with what we had, to improvise solutions, to accept imperfect results that were still better than nothing." Professor Zeth Moore announced that the class time was ending, but students lingered to ask more questions. Lisa found herself surrounded by aliens, eager to learn more about human medical philosophy. "Will you teach a regular course on human emergency medicine?" Thelanara asked, her patterns bright with enthusiasm. "The Galactic Medical Council has requested a full curriculum," Professor Zeth Moore announced. "Miss Martinez, you will be the first human professor at this academy." Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. She had come to the academy as a primitive exchange student, doubting whether human medicine had any value in a galaxy of advanced healing technologies. Now she was being asked to teach aliens techniques that